District Attorney Sandra Doorley, Sheriff Todd Baxter. My name is Chris Chichester. Today is October 24th, 2022, and this is the Freedom of Information Law. I'm going to read every single one of these documents that you have received from me for 18 months, and you refuse to comply with every single one because you're corrupt. Those documents that I'm going to read will arrive at your offices tomorrow because this is a certified mail receipt. You see here, October 24th, 2022, Todd K. Baxter, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, Alex Renzi, who waits for me alone in New York State Supreme Court, James Mully Jr., and you will continue to refuse to provide me with a list of defendants before you, James Mully Jr., at $34,000 salary, Paul C. Metzler in Penfield Court, who waited for me alone, and a $28,000 salary, and you will refuse to provide me with a list of defendants in Penfield Court, and you also refuse, Mully and Metzler, to provide me with the so-called defective documents for the case of Dane DeLaus III, this accused child rapist that your predecessor, Paul C. Metzler, 70-year-old John P. Lomenzo Jr., released because he has a relationship with the family. Do you, Paul C. Metzler and James C. Mully Jr., believe that you're guided by ethics and decency and morality? Because every single inch of you two geriatric hacks is corrupt. So, that's it. Now, what you're going to receive, and I'm going to read, you've received over and over, because these are receipts, but more importantly, these are cards that come back to me. That's a stack. It would take me, I think, a few minutes to just read everyone, the name on here, and the person that signed for it, like M. Farrelly on 10/15 for you, Todd Baxter, and RSP on 10/11 for you, Sandra Doorley, and Nicholas Sprague for Alex Renzi on 10/12, and Kristen Shapansky on 10/11, Paul C. Metzler, James P. Mully Jr. on 10/12. This is over 10 days ago where I'm demanding listed defendants in Penfield Court. Mully and Metzler predictably refused to disclose such a list. Paul C. Metzler and James P. Mully Jr. in Penfield, New York, can walk to this parking lot without being arrested. Why is that? Are you a different type of American than me, you bald-headed $28,000 widow, Paul C. Metzler? That you can walk to this parking lot and not be arrested? James P. Mully Jr., are you a different kind of American than me, that you can walk to this parking lot and not be arrested? The answer is yes. That's not hyperbole. I'm not trying to be dramatic. What's it say about $67,000 hack from hell shattered my Miles County Sheriff's Office when I'm the only citizen subject to a warrant for arrest for walking through this parking lot? Because those are two of my neighbors right there. People walk through this parking lot every single day, beginning at 7 a.m. all the way until midnight, because I could see them from the sliding glass door at my former residence and the upstairs bedroom window. And I could see them entering and exiting from the front kitchen window on the first floor. All day long, people walk through this parking lot. The accusatory instrument for me is walk through the parking lot. This is the absolute, complete, sick, lunatic fringe. 4,000 times I've walked through this parking lot. Am I New York's 4,000-time criminal, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter? That's not a rhetorical question. The answer from you is yes. A warrant for my arrest for walking through a parking lot. I've talked about events at Harris Square Park. I'm not going to do that again. But 200 people walked through this parking lot ahead of me in a span of 5 minutes that I saw. None of these people are arrested. How do you possibly continue to employ cop from hell, $67,000 Shannon Meyer, and I'm standing on my front lawn in handcuffs because of her in that parking lot? And you come into my residence to demand my dog. I'm not going to go into that again, but I'm just going to remind you, you, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, showed up with two of your fellow psychopaths to seize my dog when I've walked him for the same way for 7 years and 4,000 times. So, now, here, what I'm going to read to you, you've received also UPS. So I go to Park Avenue, and here it is. This is October 17th. What I'm going to read, you received on October 17th. What I'm going to read, you received, this is Paul C. Metzler. On October 3rd, UPS for a list of defendants. James P. Mully Jr. on October 3rd for a list of defendants. And on October 3rd, everything I'm going to read here, this is 5 cards here for Baxter, Doorley, Renzi, Metzler, and Mully. I received nothing. So, and I track it in different ways. This is the United States Postal Service tracking my documentation for you. These are 5 receipts, which shows that it arrived. Everything that I'm going to read arrived from UPS, the United States Postal Services, and Registered Mail Return Receipt. I changed ways that I demand information from you. I'm not asking you party-switching sociopaths, Sandra, Doorley, and Todd, Baxter. I'm telling you 2 criminals to send me this information. And the information that interests me the most are my prosecutors of silence. How am I in jail 6 times? And 6 times the prosecutor doesn't talk court. How's that happen even once, Sandra Doorley? How's your health, Sandra Doorley? Because you use your health for political purposes because you want to generate sympathy and support. And that's a disgrace. I don't care about your health at all. And shut the hell up about your health, Sandra Doorley. Because what you're doing is using your health because you want to get in touch with your feelings and demonstrate to the people of Monroe County that you're a survivor and all that other nonsense about your health. Doesn't matter that you're a survivor of any type of disease or affliction. Do your job. And when you talk about your health, people like me, and I believe that I'm not alone, will question if you can perform in the office of district attorney, its duties and responsibilities, given the radical decline of your health. Your employees know the answer to this question. I'm going to write this down. I'm going to write you 1,000+ words only on your health. And this is a question you refuse to answer. And again, why you're corrupt. Do you go into the office at 47 South Fitzhugh in Rochester for the standard 40-hour work week, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5? What's the answer to that question? The arrogance of you diva from hell, is you refuse to answer that question. Why? And Sheriff Baxter, employees are constantly in places where they shouldn't be. I ran a 5K in Rochester, at the University of Rochester, and there were your vehicles and your employees at this 5K. There's no reason for your employees to be at that 5K. Here's your employee driving by me at Wegmans. There's no reason for your employee to be at Wegmans. Your employee's at East Main and Pindle sitting there in his vehicle doing nothing. I constantly see your employees in places and spaces where they don't belong. Do you know what your own employees do? And you cannot possibly know what everyone's doing. But you can have directives. You could tell your employees, don't sit in your vehicle next to a store such as Wegmans. Don't idle alongside a main street in Rochester where you can be seen doing nothing. What are these employees doing sitting in their vehicles? All they have to do is go to a main road somewhere in Monroe County, sit in their vehicle with a radar gun, if it's called a radar gun, and police the roads. They're not policing the roads when they're alongside of Wegmans. They're not policing the roads when they're East Main and Pindle. They're not policing the roads when they're at a 5K. You are such a joke and a buffoon that you don't know you're a joke and a buffoon. Such as when this employee comes driving right by me at Wegmans. Todd Baxter. So, it's not a crime for me to walk outside, stand on 26 Sanders Farm Drive, tell a man on his tractor from Broccoli Tree and Lawn Care, nobody owns the land next to my residence. That's not a crime, you party-switching buffoon from hell. I'm not harassing anyone when I'm on a bench press and Jermaine Benman walks up to me, tells me to get off the machine. I tell him I'll be 30 seconds. He stands over me, punches down my head, snaps back violently. We go out the vehicle. Benman says he wants to press charges against me. I didn't commit any crime, and I was in Monroe County Jail for that. I'm not committing attempted felony assault on my back porch in Penfield when $85,000 Don Benedetto and his fellow psychopath with the last name Houlihan hid on the private property of my elderly neighbor waiting for me to come out of the residence on August 28, 2020. And I'm told that there's no such concoction as attempted felony assault. You're so desperate to nail me to the wall with a concocted crime that you came up with this attempted felony assault where Houlihan says to swung a hammer at him. I leave my residence. I walk alongside my residence. Here comes Houlihan and Benedetto from the private property, turn around and run away. When I began to run, you party-switching stooge and buffoon from hell, Todd Baxter, I never stopped running. As I get to the back porch, I grab a hammer. I go up the back porch. I'm about to run through the sliding glass door. Houlihan puts his hand on my arm. The hammer I just grabbed goes up. I pull away. I run through the sliding glass door. I never stopped running, Todd K. Baxter. Since I never stopped running, I couldn't swing a hammer at Houlihan. Why don't you ask Houlihan and Benedetto about this night? You won't, because the blue wall of silence will be erected by you where there's no accountability. If I swung a hammer hypothetically at Houlihan, I'd have to stop and pivot on my right foot and bring the hammer down on his head, and they would have ran into me and tackled me. Do you understand what I just said, Todd Baxter? How that's an impossibility for me to swing a hammer at Houlihan when I ran the whole time. In order for me to swing a hammer, I'd have to stop at some point. My motion would not continue if I swung a hammer at Houlihan. What do you fail to understand? And you do fail to understand. Because you're in the denial of corruption. That's why. Todd K. Baxter. Criminal attempt second, attempted felony, assault, harassment second. These are all lies. These are all concoctions from a sheriff's office whose employees don't understand what constitutes a criminal act. With all the training and guidance and direction officers of law, uniform officers of law receive these days, it is an indictment of your skinhead that your own employees don't know what constitutes a criminal act. Today is October 24th. This is the Freedom of Information Law. It's attached in PDF. You will receive it tomorrow. Registered mail, return receipt. My name is Christopher Chichester. I've never committed a crime. The internal disciplinary records or documentation for employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. The Sheriff Todd K. Baxter is disciplined, reprimanded, and terminated from employment at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. Brandon Cadiz committed a robbery on Ladder Road, and he was fired. How many other employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office have committed crimes and been arrested? And have you terminated their employment? If they have not committed crimes and they have violated civil and constitutional rights of its citizens, such as was happened to me, do you have a disciplinary process? What's the disciplinary process at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? That's what I'm demanding of you. I'm not asking every single one of these. I'm telling you to send me this information and respond to this. Have $0 Michael Radler respond to every single one of these. And when I contact State Controller Thomas DiNapoli to demand an audit of your office, Todd Baxter, I will immediately cite Michael Radler as your corruption. A $0 employee. Is Michael Radler paid private money from your campaign accounts you created in 2017 and 2021 to work the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? The answer to that question is yes. Then I do not know the legality of it, but that's easy to determine. This is a different type of disciplinary process for an attorney in the district attorney's office. These are members of the bar where you swear an oath. I believe that there is an oath sworn also for the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. This is an oath that commands attorneys all throughout New York to comport themselves with the highest character. And that doesn't happen in the district attorney's office, because I've been in jail 6 times, and 6 times a prosecutor has not talked in court. And for 18 months, I've demanded you, Sandra, Doorley, disclose the names of my prosecutors' silence, and you refused. You refuse now. If you watch me, I don't know if you watch me because I don't check the views. You refuse tomorrow when you sign for and receive the Freedom of Information Law that demands disclosure of the names of my prosecutors' silence. Just like you received this document for 18 months and you refused. Freedom of Information Law, the internal disciplinary records or documentation for employees of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. That District Attorney Sandra Doorley is disciplined, reprimanded, and terminated from employment at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. Does the name Mike Nifong sound familiar to you, Sandra Doorley? And it does, because this is the district attorney that railroaded the Duke University lacrosse players because of false accusation of rape by a stripper named Crystal Mangum. So the reason why I cite that is that a district attorney anywhere in the United States of America has extraordinary power to destroy a life. And that's what happened to these Duke University lacrosse players. If you follow that story and you listen to these young men speak about what happened and the impact on their families and their mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters, it is heartbreaking. It is a tragedy what happened to these young players on the Duke University lacrosse team. Their lives are shattered into a million little pieces. That's exactly what's happened to me by prosecutors of silence. So the disciplinary records for the district attorney's office. How do you discipline your employees? The internal disciplinary records or documentation for employees of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. District Attorney Sandra Doorley has disciplined record and terminated from employment of the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. Corruption requires repetition. I may read some of these more than once to emphasize the language and tell you to comply with the law that I have in my hand. Sandra Doorley, and you will refuse every time. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. On one page of the payroll that I acquired, the only time I acquired it, you had your 12 employees that you pay $100,000 or more. How many of those employees, of those 12 on that one page, are paid more money than you, Todd Baxter, $132,599 with overtime? What's the total number of employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office that are paid more money than you, Todd K. Baxter, in overtime? You refuse to answer. I'm going to get to that for about overtime. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. On the payroll that I acquired from the District Attorney's Office, there were 15 employees that are paid $100,000 or more. You, Sandra Doorley, your $203,089 salary. How many of your employees that you pay $100,000 or more are paid more money than you in overtime? And you refuse to answer. The total cost of overtime, time and a half, or paid by our base salary is calculated at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. Your employees sit in vehicles doing nothing to accumulate overtime if, in fact, you pay them overtime. I believe that you do, but you need to tell me if you pay overtime. Do you have a top 10 list of your overtime employees? Because you could look at this list of top 10 overtime employees, then you could call them into your office and ask them, what are they doing to be paid this money? Is it voluntary? If, in fact, you have overtime, can a sheriff office employee say, I worked 55 hours this week, and these 15 hours that I worked overtime, I'm filling out this documentation here for extra money in addition to the salary. Is that the way it works? Is it voluntary, and then you just act as a stamp of approval? I don't know. Tell me the answer, Todd Baxter. Total cost of overtime, time and a half, or paid on a base salary is calculated at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. During a trial, it is common, I believe, for an assistant district attorney and you, Sandra Doorley, to work beyond a 40-hour week, especially a murder trial. There is real crime and violence in Monroe County, especially in Rochester. And your assistant district attorneys must devote time and resources to building a case against the accused. And I believe that happens after the 40th hour. It has to, especially with the murder trial, some other serious trial. So, Sandra Doorley, when the 41st hour is worked, how do you pay your employees at the district attorney's office? Do you have any of your $100,000 assistant district attorneys that are paid more money than your $203,089 salary? What's the answer to that question? This is taxpayer resources that I'm forcing you to disclose, and you're refusing. Are you going to tell the controller, Thomas P. DiNapoli, and his employees that you're going to refuse to answer questions about overtime? Because when I contact Controller Thomas P. DiNapoli, I'll demand that you be audited, Sandra Doorley and Todd Baxter, and I'll cite the fact that you're refusing to respond to my Freedom of Information law about overtime or time and a half. So, Kathleen Miller, how long have you worked at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? I don't know. I also don't know if you're the mother of Camille Miller, who's on the payroll for $12,000, and if Camille Miller is a minor, and if you're married to $77,000 Andrew Miller, and if this is where the Millers at the Sheriff's Office. I don't know. Miller's a common name. So, Kathleen Miller, I also don't know where you work, but you are a contact for Todd Baxter, along with Michael Radler, William Tadeo, and Scott Alberti. Those are the four names I have as far as contacts for the public or the media. So, Kathleen Miller, what is your interaction with the male uniformed employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? And would you say that, based on your interaction, that these males behave with the highest standards of ethics and professionalism? Are you being sexually harassed, Kathleen Miller, at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? Do you know what sexual harassment is? It has different definitions. It's not a convenient one-size-fits-all definition. Sexual harassment is a man asking a woman out on a date over and over, and she is under siege with no. Sexual harassment is forcible touching in the office, where the female will say to the male, stop touching me. Sexual harassment is lewd, profane, vile language in the office that makes it impossible to focus and concentrate. Sexual harassment is misogynistic language used by men directed at women. It manifests itself and destroys the heart and soul of a human being every single day in the workplace. And I demand if it's going on in your workplace, Kathleen Miller, and your boss, Todd K. Baxter, will refuse to respond yes or no, and this is why he's corrupt. Freedom of Information Law. The cost of taxpayers of Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Doorley expended taxpayer dollars to settle employment-related discrimination lawsuits fair to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I believe you, Perry Duckles, are the de facto district attorney of Monroe County, and no one elected you because of the radical decline of the health of District Attorney Sandra Doorley. Has a female employee ever come to you, Perry Duckles, and described in detail sexual harassment at the district attorney's office? That's the first question. If the answer to that question is yes, the second question is, what did you do about it? So what are the facts and circumstances of any type of behavior that's sexual harassment at the district attorney's office? And have you expended taxpayer dollars, like this FOIL says, to pay someone off so that person will be quiet, silent, not embarrassed at the district attorney's office? Or just there was a settlement reached and to compensate the victim? So what's the answer, Perry Duckles? And you're going to exist in that stone cold silence that also defines your boss, Sandra Doorley. I'm walking through the parking lot next to where I live, 26 Sanders Farm Drive in Penn, for the 4,000th time. And this man named Nayraj Shah, 50-year-old man who lives with his 70-year-old mother, begins to scream at me. And that's when you, Todd Baxter, went to 2025 Penfield Road and affixed a camera, also called a surveillance device. That's what I believe you did, but I don't have certainty. Now, if this camera on this building at 2025 Penfield Road is private technology, and you're accessing private technology to nail me to the wall for walk through a parking lot, then tell me. Because I believe you bought this camera, put it on 2025 Penfield Road. That's why the employee of this building, Elliot Roth, says to me, you're going to be arrested. That's why he says this to me, because he knows you affixed it. I've seen the images over and over, and I've held up photos of this fucking contraption you bought from me, you party-switching stooge. You're not arresting anybody else walked through that parking lot because it's $67,000 Shannon Meyer. So what's the answer, Todd Baxter? Is it private technology on this building at 2025 Penfield Road that belongs to the Consumer Insights business, where Elliot Roth is the president? Or did you buy it and fix it for me? And that's taxpayer dollars that you're spending on a camera, also called a surveillance device, to concoct the crime for me and walk through a parking lot that I've walked through 4,000 times. Freedom of Information Law. The cost of taxpayers for photography session approved by Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter photographed 10 Monroe County Sheriff's Office employees underwater in a pool. I'm not going to hold up the photograph here because it can be time consuming. And if I hold up this photograph, I could possibly be undisciplined and talk about this photograph for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It is ridiculous, these employees that work for you underwater in this pool. So Todd Baxter, it's a private event with no money was expended, or did you expend taxpayer dollars for it? You refuse to answer, and this specifically precisely is why you're corrupt. I'm going to be on here again with this photograph. I'm going to talk in detail about it, about my questions, about where was it taken, where's the pool, and I'll have other questions that you refuse to answer because you're corrupt. Just like out-of-state travel. I have a new foil on here. I'm going to get to out-of-state and out-of-county travel because of Ryan Fisher. The cost for a hotel and plane ticket for Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher to attend the Super Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia, with his canine dog Lola on February 3rd, 2019. This is the South, the Stars and Bars South in Georgia, where the flag was not changed until 2003. That's how alienated Georgia is from the United States of America, where they have the Stars and Bars on their flag. What's he doing down there? Was it for a conference? That's what I'm going to get to in the next foil here, in one of the foils, pardon me, that I read. Did you send Ryan Fisher to Atlanta, Georgia for a conference and you refuse to answer? And you'll exist in that stone cold silence of corruption, Todd Baxter. Your employees are grossly overweight at that sheriff's office. In one of my appearances, I believe it was in New York State Supreme Court, there was a Monroe County Sheriff Office employee inside the courtroom, and he was easily 40 pounds overweight. And when you go into the courtroom, there is the security, where your Monroe County Sheriff Office employees are the security. And that's where you got your old guys. That's where you got your guys that are 50 years old and 20, 30, and 40 pounds overweight, because you know they can't be out on the road doing real police work. And you do real police work. There's no doubt about that. I don't think that you're some type of cartoon cop here, where you're not facing down violent threats and arresting criminals. You place your life on the line every single day, as does every single uniformed employee of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. When they wake up in the morning, that could be the final day, and that's always praiseworthy for every police officer and sheriff's office employee in the United States of America. Todd Baxter, why are your Monroe County Sheriff's Office employees screening bags at 99 Exchange at the Justice Courts when I go into New York State Supreme Court, where I have to confront Alex Renzi alone, without a prosecutor, without a jury of 12, without a witness box for testimony, without any evidence that I've committed a crime? Why are they there? Why don't you just hire private security? Why don't you contact Alex Renzi or his representative and have private security do this? I'm not asking rhetorically. I'm going to return to this point about Monroe County Sheriff's Office employees in their uniforms doing security at the Justice Courts at 99 Exchange in Rochester. It's a joke. Michael Radley, the $0 employee, when I acquired the payroll, I was going down page after page. I wasn't even looking at the salaries. I was looking for your name because it wasn't advertised and it wasn't in order from the highest to lowest. It's bizarre, the payroll I had. And then I got to your name, Michael Radley, it says $0. You paid private money to work the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Michael Radley, from the campaign accounts Todd Baxter created in 2017 or the campaign accounts he created in 2021. Why would you go into the office for no money? You know the answer. To answer that question, I'm going to write to you directly. When I'm ready to contact the United States Department of Justice, I'll be sending registered mail return receipt to Todd Baxter, and I'm going to write to you directly, Michael Radler, about any compensation you're receiving that could be private money at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. The day and year Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter rehired Michael Radler after his 20-year career with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office ended. Who do you have at your jail, Todd Baxter? Separate the violent inmates from the non-violent inmates. The name and charge of every inmate at Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter's Monroe County Jail from January 2018 to October 24, 2022. Why do you have the non-violent criminals, real criminals, around the violent criminals? I'm listening to the nonviolent criminals talk to the violent criminals about their crimes, including the murderers and the rapists around the insurance scammers. Todd Baxter, create a separate part of Monroe County Jail for the white-collar criminals. Do you fail to understand what I just said? Do you know why? It's not because I have any tremendous sense of compassion for people I don't know. It's because there could be a violent crime committed upon an inmate by a violent inmate. And you can avoid violence at Monroe County Jail if you segregate the violent accused inmates from the nonviolent accused inmates. And why hasn't this occurred to you, Todd Baxter? Because it's a political catastrophe if there is a violent crime or even a murder at Monroe County Jail and the victim that is murdered is in there for like a crime that I just described, like an insurance scam, which is a real crime that has victims. But that is a lot different than a murder and a rape. Separate your nonviolent inmates from the violent inmates. Do what I'm telling you to do, you party-switching stooge from hell. Give me 3 names, Sandra Doorley, and you will refuse. This specifically, precisely, is why you're corrupt. The documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester before John P. Lomenzo Jr. in Penfield Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? She stood there in stone-cold silence. The documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester before Paul C. Metz from Penfield Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? He stood there in stone-cold silence. The documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester before Alex Renzi in New York State Supreme Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? These are the 2 females that are behind me in my last appearance before Alex Renzi. So, what are their names? How do you decide to assign prosecutors to me? Because I hadn't seen these 2 before. This is not the one that was in before John P. Lomenzo Jr. And was that Julie Hahn? Is Julie Hahn my prosecutor, who's now a Monroe County court judge before John P. Lomenzo Jr.? I don't know. But tell me her name. Sandra Doorley. Paul C. Metzler, pay attention, you bald-headed widow. A list of defendants in Penfield Town Court for Paul C. Metzler. It's that simple, and you will refuse. A list of defendants in Penfield Town Court for James Maloney Jr. It's that simple, James Maloney Jr. You will refuse. A list of defendants in Penfield Town Court for John P. Lemezzo Jr. I don't care if he's retired. I want to contact these individuals. Send me a list of his defendants, and you will refuse. If the United States Department of Justice calls you, representatives for Attorney General Merrick Garland, Paul C. Metzler, and James Maloney Jr., you're going to refuse to comply? Because I think you would. How do you explain that everybody's guilty? That's why you're refusing. You are absolutely refusing to send me a list of defendants because there's no one that's acquitted. You don't know how to acquit someone. Facts, circumstances, and the truth have to be determined in an acquittal. And facts, circumstances, and truth are totally irrelevant to you two hacks in Penfield Town Court. This is the Watkins-Glen foil. I'm going to change the language on this, and I'm going to be on here only about you, Todd Baxter, going to Watkins-Glen. What a joke. Freedom of information. The total cost of the trip to Watkins-Glen, New York by Sheriff Todd K. Baxter. What's not to understand? You're sitting there in a race car. I mean, really, Animal House at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. This is a new foil. It's the first time I wrote this for the sheriff and the district attorney. The cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County and New York State by employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, all travel. Do you send your employees to conferences to talk about the job? A conference is a joke, a waste of time, and I would see them in my employment in Albany, New York when I worked for the majority leader and governor. Your employees should never be at these conferences. I've seen these on television too, where there'll be a police chief somewhere and I'm watching MSNBC or CNN or Fox News and they'll cut to the man talking about some event or incident or trial in his jurisdiction, and it's at a conference. And in all likelihood, Washington, D.C. Do you send your employees to these conferences? Do you, Todd Baxter, go to these conferences? I'm particularly interested in your employees going to these conferences because that's where the real abuse can happen. But do you, Todd Baxter, go? And if you, Todd Baxter, go to these conferences, just like you went to Watkins-Glen, do you bring your employees such as $131,000 Corey Brown? Does Corey Brown earn more money than you, Todd K. Baxter, with overtime? Does overtime take Corey Brown over his $131,000 salary and past your $132,599 salary? And does Corey Brown make more money than you? How many Monroe County Sheriff Office employees make more money than you, Todd K. Baxter? Freedom of information law. The cost of taxpayers for all travel out of Monroe County and New York State by employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office of Sandra Doorley. Have you, Sandra Doorley, as the district attorney, traveled to these conferences? What's the answer? How many of your employees at the district attorney's office have been to these conferences? I would see Marsha Clark periodically over the years after the O.J. Simpson trial concluded. She would be at events just like this here talking about that trial. So, and I didn't have any problem with that because she wasn't employed in Los Angeles County anymore. She was finished and done. She can go to any conference she wants as a private citizen. Are you public citizens who exist with taxpayer dollars going to conferences? And this does not use the word conferences. That's why I looked at it just to make sure that I have the language right. This is a general language about travel. Because if you're sending your employees out of Monroe County and out of New York, I believe in all likelihood it's almost always for one of these ridiculous conferences. What's the answer, Sandra Doorley? And you refuse to answer. So, that is for October 24th, 2022. See this? It's coming tomorrow. I went to the post office today on East Main Street. I'm going to point here to this. So it says right here, you can see the price there. Postage $2.40. I'm paying extra money to get the signatures too. So it's not only the price of the documentation that's in the envelope. I checked the box here where it will say, I don't think I have the card here, where it will say service type, adult signature, certified mail. So I always check this box. I pay more money. When I check one of these boxes, that's how I know it arrives to the person I want with the service type. So, Todd K. Baxter, that's coming tomorrow. Sandra Doorley, there it is right there. There's your name. What I just read is coming tomorrow. Alex Renzi waits to be alone in New York State Supreme Court. Am I finished and done with this $200,000 hack? He is in total confusion up there. And I believe some of it has to do with his age, which is about 70. And that's where Paul C. Metzler and James P. Milley Jr. Exist in geriatrics. So he's got that gray hair. I mean, he looks ridiculous up there by himself in his black robe where there's no jury, there's no prosecutor, there's no witness box for testimony. I'm in 1984 with this guy here. You're forcing me into his Supreme Court. Someone at that repulsive shack district attorney's office decided to compel me to go into Alex Renzi's courtroom, the supervising judge. So who is it? You refuse to answer that question too. I'll have language when I communicate with you in writing, Sandra Doorley and the Department of Justice. One of your employees decided that I was going to be in this guy's courtroom, this Alex Renzi. Who was it? Is it you or is it somebody else? Is it Perry Duckles? Who's compelling me to go in front of Alex Renzi? It's James P. Milley Jr. James P. Milley Jr., you released Jermaine Benman, who violently attacked me. Not one day in jail. And you don't even know any of the facts and circumstances of what happened. I'm going to be in contact with you, even though I've been on this app, TikTok, that I attached here. I'm on this app that you don't be on for 3 minutes, so you can click on it and you'll see me on there. I'm talking about you, James Milley Jr. and Jermaine Benman. And then here you are again, Paul C. Metzler. You're getting that. So you refuse to comply. You're signing for it. I'm tracking it. When I say I'm tracking it, I'm signing it. This is how I track it too. I can tell. I can get on my laptop and I can see when it was delivered even before the card comes back to me. I know it's there. So, you're coming to my residence to man my dog. I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm not even going to talk about the details because it really is a sickness of the soul, a hatred of the heart. People love their dogs with every fiber of their being, and here you come to my residence demanding my dog. Do you know that Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone? Todd Baxter and your employees could call me. So, $85,000 Don Benedetto chased me up onto my back porch. Did you tell $85,000 Don Benedetto to hide on the private property of my neighbor with his fellow psychopath, Houlihan Todd Baxter? You know what I'm talking about? Does Corey Brown know what I'm talking about? Does anybody there know what I'm talking about? These two on the body camera footage are stalking me on this August night because of what I'm doing to you on YouTube and the things I've said about you on YouTube. Todd Baxter. Do you know what I'm talking about? The 1984 of Don Benedetto and Houlihan on my back porch in Penfield. Todd Baxter, did you directly order Don Benedetto and Houlihan to come to my residence that midnight and wait for me to exit my residence? My name is Christopher Chichester. I'm an innocent man.